There's a place you visit almost every day that nobody else can see. Not a memory, not a room. A world your brain builds and rebuilds, scene by scene. Sometimes with characters who feel more familiar to you than the people sitting next to you in class. Most people would call that daydreaming and leave it there. Harmless, a little embarrassing, nothing worth studying. But psychologists who've actually researched this will tell you it's stranger than that. For a specific group of people, imagination isn't just something to fill empty time. It runs like a second life, quietly, underneath the real one. Maybe you've caught yourself walking down the street, mouthing words to a conversation that never happened. Maybe a teacher said your name twice, and you genuinely didn't hear the first one because you were somewhere else, somewhere better. If that sounds like you, I want you to know something before anything else. You're not lazy, and you're not broken. There's real research behind what your brain is doing. By the end of this video, you'll know where this habit actually comes from, what it says about your childhood, and one Harvard finding that might explain why daydreaming, even the good kind, can quietly leave you feeling worse. In 2002, a psychologist named Eli Summer noticed something odd in a few of his patients. They didn't just daydream. They disappeared into it. Full storylines, running for hours, sometimes with the same characters returning for years. He gave it a name, maladaptive daydreaming. Here's the detail that surprised even Summer. A lot of these people moved while they did it. Pacing, rocking, walking slow circles around a room, like their body needed to keep up with whatever was happening in their head. That matters because it means this isn't daydreaming in the casual sense. It's closer to being in two places at once. One body in the room, one mind somewhere else entirely, fully running the show. Researchers eventually built a scale to measure it. Score high enough, and psychologists consider it clinically significant. Not because imagination is bad, but because for some people, it stops supporting real life and starts replacing it. That's what it looks like from the outside. The more interesting question is who ends up like this in the first place. Back in 1981, researchers Cheryl Wilson and Theodore Barber studied people with unusually powerful imaginations. They found that around 4% of people fit a pattern they called fantasy prone. Their inner world isn't just vivid. Some of them spend half their waking hours somewhere other than here. A few of these people build what psychologists call a paracosm. That's a fully invented world with its own history, its own rules, sometimes even its own language, that they return to for years. Not a random daydream, an entire place that exists nowhere except inside them. That's not random. Wilson and Barber traced it back to something specific about how these people grew up. And that's where this stops being a fun fact and starts feeling personal. Some fantasy-prone people had parents who leaned into imagination early. Bedtime stories, pretend play, that kind of encouragement. But plenty of them grew up the opposite way. Lonely, understimulated, dealing with something hard at home, without many people around to lean on. So the brain did what brains are built to do. It solved the problem. Think about the classic imaginary friend who never really leaves. They just get more detailed every year. If the real world couldn't offer company, or safety, or control, imagination quietly built a version that could. That's honestly kind of remarkable if you sit with it for a second. It's not a flaw that showed up late. It's a coping skill that worked so well in childhood, nobody ever told it to switch off. That explains where it comes from. What it might be costing you now is a different story. In 2010, two Harvard psychologists, Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert, built an app that pinged people randomly during the day and asked 3 questions. What are you doing? Where's your mind? And how do you feel? They collected almost 250,000 answers. The result? People's minds wandered away from the present moment about 47% of the time. Almost half of their waking life. And this is the part most retellings leave out. It didn't matter if the daydream was pleasant. People were still less happy in those moments than when their mind stayed with whatever they were actually doing. So even the good daydreams, the ones where everything goes right, we're quietly taking something away in the moment. Not because imagining is wrong, because most of our happiness happens in the present, and every minute spent somewhere else is a minute you don't get to feel it. None of this means your imagination is working against you. A rich inner world is usually a sign of a brain that's creative, resourceful, and probably got you through something real. The goal was never to shut it off. It's to notice when it's driving instead of just riding along, and gently bring yourself back into the room when it counts. Your imagination built you somewhere safe once. You don't have to live there full time to keep it. Here's a question worth carrying with you. If your brain can build entire worlds so convincing that you forget they aren't real, what makes you think it's giving you an accurate picture of your own face every time you check the mirror? That's exactly what the video on your screen is about. Why so many people can't stand their own reflection, and why the reason has almost nothing to do with how they actually look. If this video was about the world your brain builds for you, that one is about the version of you it's been quietly rewriting. Go watch it next.